Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Radio Geonosis, where we talk about Star Wars from a certain point of view. I'm Angie, and I'm with.
I'm with Jim. Wait a minute. Was oh yeah, I'm with me too, I guess.
For the
Okay.
second time. First one got erased, by the way.
Take two.
So we're doing a take two.
Yay.
This week, we're going to be talking about location, location, location. But before we do that, we're going to get to some hot happenings this week. So, Jim, take it away.
Well, I'm gonna start with Disney because, well, Disney. Um, there was an announcement by the Disney company that the Rise of the Resistance ride at Disneyland and Walt Disney World have a confirmed opening date. Um, Orlando's going to open first on December 5th, which also happens to be Walt Disney's birthday because it says it right
Yes,
here.
that fits in perfect.
And at Disneyland in Anaheim on January 17th, 2020.
So it's going to open first in Walt Disney World
Right.
and then second in Disneyland.
Yes.
Ah, you would have thought that it would have been the other way around because Galaxy's Edge opened here first and then in Florida.
Well, yeah, and I imagine it has something to do with, the functionality of the ride and making sure it's safe and, getting all the little details worked out and everything. It just may be in this particular case that Orlando's a little bit ahead now. So they can kind of push it a little earlier.
Hmm.
That's kind of how it works, and because they've got it all budgeted out and everything, and it's just a matter of finalizing all the details and getting, and the big thing is making sure it's safe.
Yeah, I understand that. I
Um,
understand that.
so so that's pretty much that for that. Also, Disney also it looks like we might be getting a sit down restaurant for Galaxy's Edge as well. I'm not sure if it's going to be in both parks, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to be in Disneyland.
I think there's something about a hotel planned as well, somewhere along the
Oh yeah,
line.
that's going to be in Florida, and that's it's not just a hotel, but it's like an entire experience in and of itself. It's almost like a ride in and of itself. The Disney Star Wars hotel experience is basically, you book your time there to go, and you're basically in the hotel the entire time because it's like a role playing experience.
That's cool.
Yeah, and you can go in there. And everybody's like in Galaxy's Edge. Everybody's in character, and you have an adventure in this kind of experience. Like you go into your room, you look out the window. It's not like Florida. It'll be space because it'll be like
Wow.
you're in a spaceship. So
Wow, everyone's going to be claustrophobic.
if you are, you might want to make sure that you can handle that kind of
That's
thing,
true. That's
or that
true.
there are accommodations for such thing.
Yeah.
Um, and if you do want to visit Galaxy's Edge while you're doing your stay at the hotel, I think there's an arrangement that they make that basically you get on what they would call a shuttle, and then it takes you directly to the Galaxy's Edge location.
Kind of like what Padme and Anakin went on when they had to go to Naboo.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. When yeah, travel as refugees. Okay,
Yes, but
okay, I'll have to remember that.
they were traveling as like just regular folk. They weren't royalty and all of that.
Hmm. Yeah. So anyway, next on my list is the announcement of the Sith Trooper.
Yes, everybody's blowing up about it.
Yeah, and basically it came as a San Diego Comic Con announcement. So you're going to start seeing basically Comic Con exclusives coming out, and that's for the Star Wars Pavilion there. And you're going to have the Sith Trooper, which is basically a First Order Stormtrooper that's all done up in red.
It's a little bit like Hip Hop Trooper.
Yeah, just like our good buddy Hip Hop Trooper, whom I miss and haven't seen in a while.
He's in Nashville. I think it's going to be, you said earlier, Funko Pop, and it will be in Black Series,
Right.
correct?
Black Series 6-inch action figure, a Funko Pop. I think there's a stand up that you can get. There's a couple other little things too, I'm sure. I'm hoping there's a 3 3/4 because I will probably get one of those because I collect 3 3/4 pretty much exclusively, which is the original size.
Yes.
Um, and that'll be kind of cool. As another note to the Sith Trooper, it's not the first Sith Trooper we've had. At least, it's the first we've had in canon, but it's not the first we've had in Star Wars.
Wow.
There was a red Sith Trooper in the original Knights of the Old Republic video game from 2003,
Wow.
and they had like their Sith Troopers that existed in that in that game, which of course takes place about 4,000 years prior to the movie timelines. Um, was that was their version of the stormtrooper, and they did have a red armored one that was like an officer or something like that.
Wow. Let's just pray that means that we're going to see Old Republic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes,
But not maybe not the Old Republic of maybe the books that are now considered legend,
right.
but more of a canon type of thing. But
Well,
let's just pray for some Revan. Let's pray for
Well,
some.
I mean, you can always, they can pull whatever they want into
Right,
canon. Because,
right.
like, Grand Admiral Thrawn was pulled into canon, and Coruscant was pulled into canon. The name
Wow.
Coruscant, okay, comes from Timothy Zahn,
Right.
from the first his first books that he wrote.
Which are excellent, by the way.
Oh yeah, they're great. They're great. I love them. Anyway, for our next little news tidbit, the D23 Disney convention is also coming up
Which I would
in
love
August,
to go.
and this will be the first year Lucasfilm is going to have a full pavilion there. And two main things that they're going to be talking about. They're going to have a full Stormtrooper display. So every Stormtrooper that has ever existed in any of the films, they're going to have a costume display for. So
Wow.
kind of like the history and evolution of Stormtroopers, which
Yeah.
would be kind of cool. Also, there's a planned sneak preview, or another sneak preview, if you will, of the Mandalorian show coming up in November. So I imagine it's either going to be, I would be hoping for a full trailer. That'd be kind of cool. Or
Yeah.
if nothing else, just another like
Some more.
scene shots that they did, like they did at Celebration. There was also an interview with Jon Favreau, who's he's the lead executive producer on the show, and he says season 1 is done. It's ready to go.
It's in the can.
All they got to do is
Release it.
show it. And he is writing season 2 now.
Wow.
Whether it actually gets greenlit, we don't know. But
I'm sure that it will.
I'm pretty confident that we'll get at least a season 2. And he's already writing it. Favreau's that kind of guy. He's a fan like we are, and he's been doing it for years. And a lot of the inspiration for the show as it is comes from just little things that he's written over the years as a fan.
Yeah.
So he's been kind of like brewing this in his head for goodness knows how long.
I'm very excited to see it.
Oh,
So
definitely,
excited.
definitely.
One of the things that I did see in some of the news is that George Lucas's museum they're working on it. They've got plans. They've now have sketches and everything, and he's going to have some of his Star Wars collection in that museum, which is super exciting, especially if they're going to have costumes, displays, and all of that. Because I know that the costumes they go on a tour, and they've had all of these really fantastic costumes on a tour. And my daughter happened to be in Washington, I believe it was last year sometime, when the costumes were touring there. So I really, really hope that in the museum that they do have a lot of the Star Wars lore, lot of the Star Wars, trinkets that he has in his collection now in the museum for all of us to enjoy.
Yeah, I can't wait for that museum to come open. I will be
A regular? Me too.
I'll probably just move in. If I'm not living at Galaxy's Edge at the time. The only negative thing you could say about the whole thing is that the museum's going to be at one end of Los Angeles, and Disneyland's at the other end of Los Angeles, basically, because it's in Orange County. So it's going to be like an hour and a half drive between the two.
Right, because I think it's going to be right there by UCLA. No, USC. It's
Right.
going to be right there by USC. I don't know. I think it's if it's in Orange County, it maybe they didn't have room there. I can't imagine that they did. It
Well,
would
I
have been
mean,
cool to have it there.
well, the thing is that this museum is not directly affiliated with Disney or
Right,
Lucasfilm
right.
specifically. It's
It's
a
George's personal collection.
right, and it's going to be it's a wider look at not just Star Wars stuff or Indiana Jones stuff. It's going to be like film lore and and history, and it's not just film. My understanding, he's going to have comic books there as well.
And artwork,
And
specific artworks and
yeah,
things.
so I mean, it's a big deal. It's going to be a
Yeah.
big deal. One last thing I probably want to bring up is that they had an interview with Daisy Ridley not too long ago,
Oh, wow.
and they were asked, just talking about various things. Right now, she's promoting a film that she was just finished called Ophelia, which is it's a Shakespearean
Oh, wow.
film, and but of course, they're going to ask her about Star Wars because
She'll forever
she
be associated with it.
oh yeah, she's now the other Luke Skywalker,
Right.
in a sense, Um,
And you can embrace it or you can run from it, but it's still going to be there.
Oh yeah, yeah. However you look at it, but she was talking about her lightsaber that she used in the film, and she says that in episode 7 and 8 when they were fighting, her hilt was like really heavy. It was a little difficult for her to use when she was fighting. And one of the things that they did for episode 9 was that they actually like lightened up the hilt physically, so it was more easier for her to do her action sequences.
Wow.
And the impression that we got, or the impression I got, I should say, is that there's a little bit more lightsaber fighting in this than we've seen already.
Yeah, I had seen something today about there's going to be in episode 9, we're going to see a really cool battle. So, there's a possibility that we'll see that. I wonder if they'll let out who made the saber, if it was a specific company or was it a movie prop,
Oh, you're talking about the movie prop itself?
her lightsaber.
Oh yeah. Well, the core of it is, it's a classic Graflex flash handle. So, and they can be replicated, with impunity these days. So I would presume that it was still pretty much done internally by the company.
Because it would be so cool. Can you imagine if you were Ultra Saber to be able to say, "Hey,
We made that.
Daisy, we made that for Daisy."
Oh yeah.
It
And
would blow them up
I mean,
huge.
the good news about the sabers, particularly in the sequel trilogy, is that a lot of the technology that was in those sabers was inspired by fan-made sabers. But particularly because they were made with polycarbonate hilts. They were lit very similar to the sabers that we use.
Right, and it would have to because you can't have the lights going in through the blade because you're going to lose the. I don't know if hers was lit or not.
Oh, they were lit, and I think they were just LED hilts. To do like say a NeoPixel hilt, which has the LED blades, the LEDs in the blade, you have a chance of breakage. Now,
Exactly.
I mean, they could afford to have like 20, and so they could probably not really worry about it that much. So it's hard to say.
Because my Mace Windu is something I would not fight with
Yeah,
because it would not survive.
but there are guys who make NeoPixel blades that are pretty fightable.
Wow.
So you can go either way on those.
Yeah.
And but it's kind of a cool little thing that I learned about that sort of thing. So
Yes, it's what, it's always good to have those little tidbits, and it's always cool to have those little Easter eggs, as you will, to be able to say, hey, I know this, you know what I mean? And
oh yeah.
that's what's fun about discussing Star Wars is that there's all of these little Easter egg things that we
Oh
can talk
goodness.
about. We
Yeah,
could go on forever.
oh yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure I can try.
Okay, so this week we're talking about location. And what I mean by that is not movie locations as much, but locations that George chose for the stories.
Uh-huh.
Different planets that he chose for the stories and different places he chose for the stories that I think are super, super special. You know, like Naboo. It's a very magical, romantic place, it seems to me.
Well, yeah.
It's something where we see an underwater civilization. We see a very refined kingdom, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
We see where Padme is queen of this wonderful planet.
Oh, yeah.
They also, at the very end of Revenge of the Sith, you see her being going to be buried. And so they don't really show you where she goes, but she goes to this funeral temple, and it's an ornate temple, which is it has an eternal flame there, and it's kind of a reminder of the souls that were lost there. But I don't imagine everybody that goes there. I think it's mostly royalty.
Yeah.
But everybody is cremated. They did say that everybody is cremated, and they're sprinkled over the water to go over the waterfall. So it's really kind of a cool, poignant thing. It's the place is called the Liver Tower. It looks like Liver Tower, and into the Soleil River, almost French when you say it.
Yeah.
So the river itself is a very it's tranquil. It's beautiful, and it has that big waterfall. And when Padme gets married to Anakin, what does she do? She gets married in front of the water.
Oh, yeah.
So water seems to be playing a big part in this on this planet. But there was a poet named the balcony. I'm sorry, is Vera Veracuro. Some of these words are crazy. But a man named Barinko was kidnapped by unknown assailants and was never seen again. And he was kidnapped at that balcony, which I think is kind of cool. It's kind of a cool little Easter egg, if you will.
Yeah.
So another planet is Tatooine.
Yes.
We know that this is a planet where Anakin was born,
Right.
but where his son ends up, where Luke ends up. But before that happens, Anakin is a pod racer.
Yeah.
And he actually we only know that he finished one.
Right.
He does race, but he doesn't finish all but one.
Right. Right.
And this one he wins. But while he's fighting, there's it's what's called a mushroom mesa. And they say that these statuette kind of sand kind of things, they say they're aliens. And so the sand people are kind of afraid of those aliens. So they kind of stay away from it. Even when they're shooting at the pods, they're up on a hill. They're not close by.
Right. Right.
Possibly because they're afraid of it.
Well, yeah. Well, they're very superstitious people, and I would imagine that, kind of like the lore and the age of the Star Wars universe, a lot of these peoples have lived for thousands and thousands of years. So their history and their lore goes back for centuries. And of course it changes and evolves all the time. So whatever the truth of those mushroom mesas are, they're certainly going to, pay attention to it. And
like Anakin?
Well, when Anakin went and he kind of killed off that entire Sand People village, men, women, and children alike,
and even animals. I think he even attacked it looked like their dogs.
Yeah,
they had like guard dogs, and it looked like
that.
he went after everybody.
Yeah, and that remained in the collective consciousness of the Sand People all throughout later.
I wonder if it was against humans themselves or the Jedi.
Well, they wouldn't know Jedi as Jedi, because they wouldn't necessarily be familiar with that kind of culture and technology, religion. I mean, they spoke of Anakin as kind of like this blue ghost who just, with his lightsaber, this blade of fire, he just, went around and, cut people to pieces,
Right.
And because, Anakin, in his full power as a Jedi, would not necessarily be recognizable as a normal human to them.
Yeah, that's true.
They would see him as superhuman. I mean, it's like if Superman, the character, were like real in our universe, in our world today, and he did the things that he did, yeah, he would be considered not human. He would be considered,
Superhuman,
well, even though he might look
if
like
you will.
even though he looks like a dude, it's like, well, dudes don't do that,
Exactly.
right? So,
Exactly. How about in on Tatooine, we see Watto's junk shop. This is an important place as well.
mm-hmm.
This is where a deal is made.
Yeah.
This is where Anakin worked
Mm-hmm.
as a slave, and
Right.
and they find out that he's a slave.
Well, yeah.
It's
and-
where Qui-Gon comes across and finds the one.
Well, yeah, and he felt a disturbance in the Force, and there it was standing there.
Exactly. I mean, it could have been. I think he might have misjudged what the. I don't know. It's hard to say if Anakin really is the one,
Well,
because there could have been someone else.
yeah, but I mean, right now, until we see Episode 9 and find out what the actual conclusion of all of this is, because like if we see, say, for example, Anakin Force Ghost talking to us and go, yeah, I was the chosen one, or no, I was not the chosen one, it was all just BS or whatever, we won't know until that happens,
Until we see it. Well, we have to wait till November.
I mean, well, of course, the implication is that he is, I mean, Obi-Wan believed it, even though he wasn't really into that sort of thing. He did ended up kind of believing it. And of course, the Jedi Order as a whole, even throughout, as we saw the development of Anakin throughout his growing up and through the Clone Wars and so on, I think there was kind of a stigma placed upon Anakin that he was the chosen one, whether even he himself believed it,
Yeah.
It's like, you're a superhuman kid, you're a superhuman kid, you're a superhuman kid. After a while, you're going to start believing it.
Yeah, and that's a lot to live up to.
Well,
That's
yeah,
a
especially
lot.
when you're a child,
Yeah,
right? You're a 9-year-old kid, and they're like, oh, yeah, you're going to change the entire future of the galaxy.
and especially coming from where he's come
Oh, yeah.
from. But this is also a place where Padme and Anakin meet,
Yes.
and so this is a very, very important place. Also, while on Tatooine, you go into Mos Eisley,
Yeah.
which is, again, the spaceport is a very important place.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Luke and Han Solo meet,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lifelong friendship and turning into brother-in-laws, if you
Right.
will.
Yeah.
It's also where we find out that Obi-Wan is in fact a Jedi,
Yeah.
because he whips that thing out, and I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure he hasn't had the chance to do
Come,
it
let
in-
me get you a drink or something. I don't like drinking alone. And then, of course, he cuts off the other guy's drinking hand.
Well, that's kind of a lie, though, because he goes to the bar with Anakin, and he tells Anakin to go get the bounty hunter while he goes to the bar for a drink.
That's right. Well,
Well, maybe times have changed. The desert has changed him quite a bit.
those people, those Jedi from the UK, you can't trust them.
Also, Coruscant. Now we're on to Coruscant. This is Old Republic. This is an important planet in the galaxy. This is where the Jedi have their temple, but not where they originated from.
No.
This was pretty much a Sith planet, and then a Sith kind of.
I'm
a
not sure if
Sith-
it was a Sith planet, but there was a dark side nexus there. And that's where the temple was built, on top of it.
Yes, and we had Anakin in the corner of Spook Central.
Well, yeah, pretty much. It's like, I mean, I don't know if
It was all seeping out, all the Sith,
all the
all
dark
s- all
side,
yes.
icky, whatever.
all the clouds from he was getting. It was coming in through the vent.
Yeah. I smell charcoal. Why?
Exactly.
Is that brimstone? I don't know.
I think it was kind of an influencer.
Yeah, well,
in maybe not just
maybe.
Anakin, but possibly other Jedi.
Well, that's the thing too, because it's like, how could the Council and Yoda, who are like some of the greatest Jedi who ever existed, right, not like basically detect Palpatine standing right in front of them, going, "Look, I'm evil, but you can't tell." Probably because there was a great gigantic dark side nexus underneath them, kind of masking Palpatine's presence. Perhaps I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that had a kind of an effect. Also, just a dampening effect on them as a whole. Kind of preventing them from operating at their peak.
Right. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. How about Camino? You know, Camino is a planet, again, a very important planet that he chose to pick out because in some of the movies we don't see what's going on with like in A New Hope. We only go to Tatooine, but we really
It
don't go anywhere else.
No, not
We're
really. I mean, you go to Alderaan, but it ain't there, and then you go to Yavin 4 in the last 20 minutes,
exactly.
and then you're done.
But we really don't emphasize these
Right,
things.
right, right.
But in movies 1, 2, and 3, we are emphasizing, these specific planets because it's giving you a layout of the history.
Yeah, and it's also giving you an idea of the size of the galaxy. I mean, the thing about the original trilogy, in some degrees, is it's very intimate because it feels smaller, and it feels smaller for two reasons. A, because there's less locations involved in both senses. Plus, it there's not a huge backlog of lore and information that we knew.
Right.
It was just the information given to us in the films, and you're done. That was it. Unless you read the comics, and you read the tie-in novels that existed, which was only like seven.
Yeah, and at that time there wasn't all this lore that we have, 40 years later. But I thought it was kind of cool. Camino was a cool planet. The clones are made there.
Mm-hmm.
And the seabird is my favorite.
The AWOL.
Yes, the seabird, almost like a manta ray.
Yep.
I love
A
that.
flying manta ray.
All right, Geonosis is another planet that I found really interesting because one, that's where a big battle is pursued. We don't see the Jedi fighting the Sith, but we do see the Jedi in a big battle.
Right.
And they're in a big battle with more of droid kind of.
Well, you had the battle droid army plus
Right.
some local Geonos and Geonosian
The bug guys.
soldiers. Yeah.
The bug guys. But this is the first time we see clones out and fighting.
Oh yeah.
They have now been dispatched to
Right.
go and fight. So I thought that was kind of a cool planet. Also, Mustafar. Mustafar was kind of like this is the end. This is the end. But actually, in Rogue One, it's more entwined in the story.
Well, yeah, you have, it ends up becoming an operation place for Darth Vader to hang out.
Right, a constant reminder of what has happened. I think for me, a constant reminder to maybe keep him focused on the dark side
Well, yeah.
is where he lost the battle. He loses Padme. He loses his best friend,
Well, he loses his
and
identity there.
he loses just about every limb he owns.
Yeah, all the rest of them anyway.
All the rest of them, yes.
He's got the Mustafarians out there fishing for his bones.
Right.
Yeah, what I like about that, is that, like you said, it's the reminder. And of course, if you read the Star Wars comics, particularly the Darth Vader comic, the second series of 25 issues, it actually goes into the building of this Fortress of Solitude, as I like to call it. And it really goes into the details about why he did it and what he did while he was there. Not just hanging out and meditating, but actually trying to do stuff. Also, it features in the Vader Immortal game, the VR game that exists. If you have I can't remember the name of that VR setup that you can get. It's fairly recent. It just came out not too long ago. And also the VR experience that was down in Los Angeles also
Yes.
took place on Mustafar as well.
Wow. I think like we talked about before, that he was a tinkerer.
Yep.
So I think he felt that what he had to wear was uncomfortable. So he wanted it to be more comfortable for him to walk around in. And we know that he possibly on the Death Star or on his own ship built that little thing that
The meditation chamber.
Yes, but and I think it was not only just medication, meditation, but it was more of a place where he could do some more healing, almost like a back to tank.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, the beauty is that he could remove the helmet and breathe normally still, which was, I think, a big deal. Because I'm sure he, would want to take it off from time to time, if nothing else, to scratch his head. But, I mean, you do get a glimpse of that in Empire. So, I would think that to be able to do that is kind of a good thing, because you can't just wear armor
All
to
the time.
bed and
Well,
all
it's
that other
obvious that he
junk.
doesn't do that because on Mustafar in Rogue One, what is he in the back to tank
Right.
with no clothes on? So
And,
it's obvious
yeah.
he takes a shower every now and again.
Well, he also takes his limbs off. His limbs weren't even attached.
Right. So I was he floating in the tank, you
More or
think,
less.
or
Well, he was on a harness that he was hanging from, so gravity was holding him down. But, I'm sure he was somewhat buoyant, and that he would
yes, if
feel.
you will.
And I think that Bacta is a little thicker than water. There is kind of a viscosity to
Right,
it.
because it's got healing stuff in it.
Yeah, I don't know if you would say it's more like syrup or more like just
Ugh.
just a slightly thicker than water, or like a thin oil perhaps. But hopefully it's tastier. I don't know.
I don't know if you'd want to taste that. But also another important place is Cloud City,
Hmm.
and that's in Bespin.
Bespin.
Bespin. See, I haven't said that right yet. So it's in Bespin. I know. This is where Lando and Han reunite.
Yes.
This is where Han is put in carbonite, and where Vader finds everybody, tells Luke he's his father, and then promptly cuts off. Oh no, he cuts off his hand,
Then
then
tells
tells
him.
him he's his father.
That's right. I'm gonna punish you. Then I'm gonna tell you what I'm about.
Let me take your hand off and then tell you that I'm your dad.
Yeah, you're not my dad.
That's a
You
positive
cut my
thing.
hand off. You're mean.
But this is an important place,
Oh,
and
definitely.
this is somewhere. Ice cream is made there too, apparently.
Yes.
So this is an important place that George felt the need to make a planet, the
Well,
need
yeah.
to tell us about this kind of a little bit of history on this. You know what I mean, on this
Well,
planet.
yeah. Well, there's so much about the movie lore history of it, and in terms of the appearance, and the historical lore, if you will. Like, I mean, it's a place in the clouds, and it has a very Flash Gordon feel to me.
Right.
If you watch Flash Gordon, of course that's 1930s, 1940s serials, because this is straight out of the 1930s and 1940s. It has a very Art Deco kind of look to it,
Right.
a little bit.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. Even
And
with what they're wearing.
but all the colors that they had, when they were going into it, it was very sunset, very dark. It wasn't a very bright place. Also, the music that was playing in the background while the Millennium Falcon was approaching Bespin was this kind of siren song. And what happens when the sirens sing? You don't want to be attracted to them, because then they'll get you and eat you, or whatever it is that sirens do.
Right. Right.
This is straight out of the Odyssey by Homer. When Theseus and his buds on the Argo, which is the ship that they lived on, had to navigate around these islands, and the sirens lived there, and they're like, they want to, they would call the sailors, and then trap them and kill them and do whatever they do to them.
This is straight up Saturday matinee George
Oh yeah.
watching.
Oh, definitely, definitely. To me, it's the It's interesting. To me, it feels most like the 1930s serials of, like, particularly the OT. Um, because the first Star Wars movie, New Hope, that was the Hidden Fortress. That's Kurosawa. So it's a completely different feel. Then the second movie has a lot of these tropes from the serials, and then Return of the Jedi was more of a, I don't know, I'm not sure how to put it, but it has a slightly different feel as
Right.
well.
Almost like a sense of loss, but also a sense of hope.
Well, it's
You
also,
know,
that's the great victory, and the general feel that I got from Return of the Jedi was that it was a little more upbeat and a little more fun, even though there was a lot of heavy things going on.
right, right.
But I still felt like there was almost a there's no visual connection, but I get a very Wizard of Oz kind of feel with Return of the Jedi
I never thought of
to a
that.
degree, and
Yeah,
it's not, like I said, it's not nothing that's visually connected or anything. It's just a feeling I get.
just a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I saw it originally, I thought to myself, is that it? Is that the last one? Is that it? But the thing is, I never realized there were books and comics and things that were attached to it.
At the time, yeah.
I did not realize that. Hoth is another place that I think is really, really important. This is where a big loss happens, and it's on an ice planet,
Oh
and
yeah.
so it's a cold feeling. The Jedi, I mean, the rebels are losing. It's to me, it's like, oh my gosh, how is this happening?
Uh-huh.
These are the rebels, they're the heroes, but yet they're going down fast.
Well, yeah, because I mean, they're going up directly against the might of the Empire, and the Empire is still a galactic power, you know. And to think that Vader's fleet, I'm sure they only dispatched a small portion of the landing troops to take out the rebel base. They took out what they said. Well, we'll just use what we need to take them out. I'm sure that he probably could have.
They didn't think they needed much.
Well, it was 5 walkers and then some chicken walkers and some, and all the troops associated with
A
it.
couple of things about that too is what I had asked my friend about is that how long did it take for them to get it off of the ship? How long did it take the walkers to come off of the main ships, the destroyers, and come down to the planet?
Well, it depends on what they use to actually land the walkers. Um,
It took some time, so they
well,
had some time for the rebels had some time
to
to
prepare,
load up everything.
at least, well, they knew they were coming when they hit the system.
Right.
So that was long before they actually deployed the troops. So at least we're talking at least several hours, possibly even up to a day. Um, because the actual landing operation probably took them a couple of hours. And I mean, the only cannon vehicles that they have right now that actually act as walker transport devices, they look like Gazanti transports, and they have 1 walker each. And so it's like they would drop it off and then they would go off. And I'm sure they have enough ships to do just do one, like one run and they're done.
Yeah.
And plus whatever they needed for the chicken walkers and any other additional landing troops that weren't in the walkers themselves and so on.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it looked like, I mean, I'm sure that the operation was bigger than what we saw on film, but not over a couple of thousand troops, and that's easy in modern
It's
terms.
almost like what you would in Henry VIII's time. They were going to battle, but this is going to be a couple months before we get there.
Yeah.
Because they have to take everything with them. So
Yeah, but in this
kind of
case,
like that.
but it's a little faster. It's a little faster. I would suggest that, like, a ship going from orbit to Earth today, like it was like an Orion capsule or a Dragon capsule. You're talking it takes about 5 or 6 hours, maybe.
Yeah.
So and that's and it's just coasting.
Right.
Now these ships will be under power, so they'll be under more control. So it could probably take them even less time, and they're shielded, whereas our earthly vessels are not shielded like they
And I'm
are.
sure they're not gonna land right in front of the rebels. They're gonna land a little bit farther
Well, they
away.
have to land outside the energy field, the defensive energy field,
Right.
and then they have to go walk through it because it's not a physical field. It's just an energy barrier for to protect against energy weapons, but you can still walk through it.
But again, here and again, that you could tell that George used a little bit of Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon movie, at the matinee, because these are like Trojan horses.
Well, in a sense.
Yeah, like Trojan horses.
Well,
So that's
yeah,
kind of a cool
well,
thing.
yeah, and that's the thing. When you're putting together, a story like this, part of the thing that happens is like, how long does it take for the Millennium Falcon to go from here to here? As long as it takes the story to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why you can go from Tatooine to Alderaan. Tatooine's in the Outer Rim. Alderaan is in the core worlds. In a normal galaxy, that's like 40,000 light years.
They had jet. I can't even think right
They used,
now.
I mean, they still had a point
Light
5.
speed. They were able to.
Well, they had a 0.5 hyperdrive, and with the Millennium Falcon had a 0.5 hyperdrive, which means that it got there pretty quick. but if you do the math, and I've done the math, I actually wrote a paper on this in college. You know, you're traveling thousands of light years in like 12 hours.
Yeah, because they get there pretty fast. But like you said,
Yeah.
they have to do as far as the movie goes. They
Yeah,
can't.
because they don't, because they just essentially explain it away, and you just, oh, we'll be there when we get
We'll be
there.
there in 20 minutes.
We'll get there when the next scene stops.
How about Jeddah?
Jet is awesome.
Yes, it is the earliest architect. Now here and again, the director and the story writer pick out a planet that has particular things, and I think in Rogue One you see the most talked about, planets, specific planets, and we're going from these particular
Well,
planets. So that's kind of
yeah.
cool.
Well, I mean, Jeddah has two things, and the movie story needed was that was the connection to the Force, because none of the hero characters had the Force. You
That we
know,
know of.
well, they certainly weren't Jedi, and then they weren't operationally using the Force, and Jeddah was a place where Force users went.
Right, and that's what it's saying. It's the architect known. It's the earliest architect known in existence in the galaxy. It's a spiritual and faithful place for people to come to search for answers and truth.
Yeah,
Because I think even though the Empire got rid of all the Jedi, they were still kids
yeah.
being born with it.
Well, yeah, there's still going to be people born with the Force, no matter how many, like yeah, the Jedi are destroyed, effectively, but Force sensitive children will continue to be born throughout the galaxy.
And some of them won't know that they even have this power. They won't realize what it
Oh
is.
no,
And that maybe that's why they go to Jeddah looking for answers.
well, some do, yeah, I'm sure.
Yes, we know that the planet was cleaned out of kyber crystals,
Right.
and then after that, part of it destroyed as an experiment, but part of it destroyed.
Well, yeah, yeah, and and the last guardians of the Force, which were the guardians of the Wills, which is a nice callback to the original novelization of Star Wars,
Yeah.
because the Journal of the Wills is mentioned in the first novelization of Star Wars in 1976.
Oh wow,
Yeah, and it's actually in the introduction.
that's cool that they put that in there because then it tells you that some of the books that were out, they're using references to make them
Oh,
in.
definitely, definitely. That's what's so cool about it. And what I liked about particularly the holy city of Jeddah, Jeddah City, um, for those of you who are interested in real world history, if you go to Israel, there's a place called Masada, and Masada was a fortress on a mesa, much like Jeddah was, and it's where a rebellious group of Jewish people were holding out against the Roman Empire, because there was a lot of rebellion in right around the time of Jesus and
Yeah.
the first century, um, AD, and or should say Common Era now. They say Common Era,
They
but
but you know what? I kind of get what you're saying because in the movie you see the somewhat Masada kind of temple, but here and again he's using some references from
history.
history and Roman times. The person who wrote Rogue One,
Yeah.
which is cool. I like the way that kind of is intertwined.
Oh yeah, definitely. And
How about Edu?
Edu's interesting.
Yes, it's a planet that has the secret laboratory.
Hmm.
It is where the empire. This is where Galen Arso and his team unlock the secrets of the Kyber crystal,
Yeah.
which is. I didn't really realize that the crystals had secrets in them, but apparently they do. And they also are doing some mining there. And that is a place where, or is it? No, never mind. That's Scarif. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, so Edu is a place where they it's like a secret laboratory,
Yeah.
but it's raining there. It's
Well, yeah, that's the weather. That's
right,
the
and
local weather
it's
there.
it's like a dark place.
Yeah, and that's helped us. I mean, it's to help establish the mood of that area, and
Yes, very
it's
dark and dreary.
and also dark and secret, because the whole Death Star project was essentially what they would call a black project, and which means that the greater public doesn't know it exists at all.
Right, and I think that was actually created on Geonosis. That plan, the plans for it.
Well, yeah, the original plans were designed by a guy, whoever that was, possibly the Geonosians themselves, and
They were tech people.
right, and then our buddy Count Dooku got him and then he got him and he brought him to his buddy Darth Sidious, and
Yes.
then that's okay. Now we have the Death Star plans, and of course it took him a whole movie to put them together.
Yes, exactly. How about Scarif? Scarif is like that tropical planet that it's got a very bad secret. It looks like a mirage out there in the desert. It's this beautiful place, but yet it holds a dark secret. It holds the citadel that has all of the information from the Empire.
Well, yeah, it's pretty much everything, and it has all of the engineering and technical schematics from the Death Star project.
And everything else.
Right, right, and gotta I guess they gotta house it somewhere. And I guess
Yes.
that's where they decided
Now,
to do it.
this is the planet that has the dense metals valuable in starship construction,
So,
almost like rare earth.
well, could be, and I don't know exactly what Durasteel is made from. I mean, it may have iron, like regular steel does, but Durasteel might have other elements to make it alloy, like what
Yeah.
we used. Because the steel in your car, for example, is not just straight iron. It's got chromium and it's got vanadium. It's got a bunch of
A
different
lot
stuff
of
in it.
different things from the
Um,
table.
One other, well, there's another planet that I wouldn't mind adding to this list, which would be Yavin 4,
Yes.
the home of the Rebel base. Um, we see it in Rogue One and in Episode 4, and which is, and they're developed from the Guatemalan temples down in Central America, but Yavin 4, the origins of Yavin 4 in Star Wars lore is that they were created by a race called the Masasi, and the Masasi were controlled by the Sith.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of those buildings that the rebellion was being housed in were actually old Sith temples.
So what happened? Well, we know what happened to the Sith, but what happened to the people? The
Well, this was millennia in the
Oh,
past.
okay.
So yeah,
They were killed off by the smallpox.
or whatever. They just died out. They got bored and left, or who knows what happened. But most of the Sith related races were either killed off or died out.
Yes.
And so I mean we're talking thousands of years. A gentleman by the name of Exar Kun um, actually had his tomb there.
Wow.
And in the EU legends, it was developed in Kevin J. Anderson's um, Jedi Academy trilogy that he did. Because Luke wanted, this is in the EU stuff now, but Luke wanted to make a new Jedi temple. I was like, well, where am I going to put it? Well, you put it back on Coruscant. You can put it here. You can put it here. Well, can I have Yavin 4? And the New Republic government's like, yeah, sure, we're not using it. So Luke puts it there. So he starts his Jedi temple there.
And of course, it's again we're back at where we were in the starting point. Coruscant has the Jedi decide to build a temple on a Sith shrine,
Right.
and what does Luke do?
Same thing.
Same exact thing.
Yeah, and I don't know if he knew that going into it, because it's not like it's written on the wall like this will just be a Sith temple. I mean, they learned definitely for sure later because the spirit of Exar Kun awoke and he actually possessed one of the students and bad things happened. And
Jeez Louise.
gotta read the books
They don't
and,
learn. What is it? History repeating itself.
well, that's why you try to remember it, and maybe it
And
won't.
don't do it again.
Yeah, it would be good.
But also, go back to Scarif.
Okay.
Tarkin knew that Krennic was on that planet, and he needed.
Well, yeah, I think he was
needed to
told
take
eventually.
him out. because this guy was interfering with his ultimate goal.
Well, yeah, which was essentially, the Death Star project really was
And
Tarkin's, politically speaking.
he was third in line, and he wanted nothing else to mess with that.
Yeah, and then essentially he had the largest sniper rifle in the universe, which
Exactly.
and and
But
like,
20 minutes later, it's gone.
well, maybe a day.
If you will.
I
If
mean, the
you will.
paint was still pretty new, that's for
Yes,
sure.
yes, they were
And that's
not
what's
prepared.
interesting, because that's where you get connections, between, of course, Rogue One and that, and the novelization. You got Krennic looking up, seeing the Death Star, basically staring him in the face, going, "Oh God, he's going to use it on me."
This is it. Did I get all my stuff in order?
Dang it. But what's interesting is that the second Battlefront novel, where Iden Versio is featured, um, she's on that. She's on the Death Star,
Wow.
and her squadron gets sent out to go fight. As they do.
So she gets taken out.
No.
Oh, she leaves before that happens.
Well, basically, what happens is that she's out in space fighting in her fighter, right? And then the Death Star blows up, and of course that has an effect. And her fighter gets hit, and she actually has to. Well, spoilers for those who have not read Battlefront 2. Sorry. Um,
if you haven't read it by now,
you're in trouble. You better read it too. It's good. And then she's forced to land on Yavin 4. Of course, the Rebel base is still technically there at the moment, so she has to basically kind of like sneak her way and fight her way out. And she stole a shuttle and actually was able to escape.
yeah, because it took out a small, it could have been like 2-3 miles, but not the whole planet. And the whole planet could have had other things in other places.
Well, yeah, like I said, the Yavin 4 was not hurt yet, so
Right.
So not until later, and then,
Yeah.
So the rebels had a chance to escape, and so on and so on.
Yes.
So it's really good.
But that's pretty interesting. Thank you for that, Jim. Well, that's going to do it for us today at Radio Geonosis. Please follow us on Facebook at Radio Geonosis 2.0. Please follow us and like and subscribe on YouTube at Radio Geonosis. We also have a little bit on iTunes. I have a few shows on there. And Jim's going to be working on a Twitter page for us.
I am? Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
That's right.
I am.
That's on the back burner. I am going to be at Comic-Con this coming week. I'm going to try and have some interviews down and get some stuff. And then Jim and I will be back the following week. So from us here at Radio Geonosis, we'll see you next time.
May the force of others be with you.
Goodbye.